Welcome back to Kevin's Trooper channel. I'm in the shop playing today, guys, and normally I would be at work right now. It's Thursday, right around 1 o'clock. We got some really bad weather coming, like 50 to 60 mile an hour wind bad weather coming. And in South Louisiana, we get a lot of flooded roads and flooded yards, and people can't get home or get around. So when the weather's that bad, a lot of times all the businesses just shut down and everybody goes home. Well, the good thing about that is I could come out to the garage and weld. I'm just hoping I don't lose electricity. It can do whatever it wants as long as I can still sit out here and weld and start this project. The project that we're going to do, I'm going to take a little break from what we typically do on the channel, and Mother's Day is coming up. I want to build her a planter stand for Mother's Day. And it's going to match this picture, and it should be a great little fun project to do. And you know, we got to take care of Mom. So let's get started. Coming up. One of the first steps that I'm going to do on this project, and this is something that I've never done before, but I was watching Jimbo's Garage, and if you guys have never watched this guy, you got to check out his channel. He is amazing. But I was watching him on his projects, and before he ever gets started with his welding or cutting, the first thing he does is he cleans up all of his metal with acetone. That gets the oil and the residue and all the grime off of it, so when he goes to cut and he goes to weld, the metal is already clean. And I'm going to do that this time, and then we'll get started cutting this thing out. Guys, listen, never clean your metal with brake clean. It could kill you if you weld on it. Never weld on brake clean. It's very, very dangerous. Acetone is safe. Acetone evaporates to nothing. Brake clean has a chemical in it that if you heat it and you breathe that in, it's very, very dangerous for you. So never use brake clean for this. Only use acetone. Alright, I'm about to start cutting out the frame to make the bottom shelf of the planter. One of the things that I need to build, and I'm going to be doing this coming up really soon, is a stand so that I can put under the end of my metal to raise and lower it to get it even with my chop saw. I know you guys have all seen those. It'd be pretty simple to make, but I need to make one coming up because I'm having to stack up a bunch of stuff here to hold this end of my angle iron so that I can 45 it. What I'm working on building first is I'm building this bottom shelf. That's going to determine the angle of the legs, and it's also going to determine the size of the upper two shelves. I love this saw. It is a beast. I'm going to cut a notch out of this piece where this one will sit in there, and I can make a 90. Instead of trying to 45 the two pieces, I'll make a notch here and then just set this piece in next to it. Alright, so we're going to take the Metabo and we're going to cut these notches out and see how it fits. And here's how the angle iron notches turn out. Once you get the two pieces put together, it's a real simple little weld. Alright, it's time for me to start welding some of this stuff up. I'm going to build the bottom shelf first. Alright, let's start to tack this thing up. So I'm going to weld it up. There is our first shelf. I decided to to go ahead and cut this out on the Metabo instead of trying to use the plasma cutter, just because I didn't want to hook it up. I wanted to see how good the Metabo did. It did great. Very nice. Fit perfect the first time. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to put something across the middle of this just to make it a little bit stronger. That doesn't quite have the strength right there to hold a big, heavy plants that I once thought it would. And it kind of has a little bit of a flop to it. Kind of up and down. I think I should cut one of these just to go right down the middle. That's going to strengthen this up a little bit. For some reason, I've got this bow in here. I guess after it cooled off, it kind of drew everything in and made this bow up. Here was what I did wrong on that one. When you weld this expanded metal onto something, let it cool first and then start from the middle and work your way to the outside welds so you don't get a bow in the middle. I just never thought about that, but I mean, it makes perfect sense. But I got it pretty well fixed. What I did was just took the cut-off wheel and sliced it down the side to relieve some pressure, welded my middle piece back in, and then re-welded it. And it's not too bad at all. I've got this propped up here, how this end is going to look. But what I want to do now is I want to cut this front bottom off where it's going to be flat with the ground and not stick up like that. So I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to mark at about the angle I need that thing cut off at. And it should be right about there. Alright, I transferred that mark, and it looks like it's right at 15 degrees angle to get this flush with the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Now I've marked out the top to give me a straight line here across these angles at the top. And that should be, and it is, the same angle it was already set for the bottom. Alright guys, I just got back from a run to the hardware store. Got a few cut-off wheels. I've been wanting to get a little countersink bent so when I start drilling holes I can do a little bit of a chamfer around the edge. And then I got some bolts. Now my plan is where the legs come down, I'm going to weld one of these nuts on to that cap so that I can put a bolt underneath so that I can level this thing. Now I hate running to the hardware store to get bolts. So every time I go, I'm building a little collection. I buy extra. They're 59 cents or 20 cents or 30 cents a piece. Grab double what you need and then stick them in a storage bin like this one right there. Then all you have to do when you need it again is just go grab one. Now I tell you another reason to buy extra bolts like this. Because inevitably some jerk decides his handful of bolts aren't the right size and opens and throws them in the next largest or next smallest size. So you end up thinking you're pulling out a handful of the same bolts, but they're one size up or one size down. So now I got to cut out some caps and we'll weld up the bottoms. Alright, we're here setting up the drill press. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and use these 7/16. Now, one of the things I recently found out is very important is that you tighten all three of these lugs. If you just tighten one, you're going to be off center. I never knew that before, but it is a fact. All right, now we're going to tack our end caps on. And let's see how this bolt is going to weld in there. I'd never welded a nut like that before. Now that did pretty good. One of the really great ways that you can keep your cord from being pulled loose is just take it, tie it like this. That way whenever you go to pull on it, you're not going to pull yourself unplugged. All right, I got the bottom shelf and the two sides on. I'm pretty excited about that. I was able to get them perfect even without anybody holding it for me. But I got the bottom on and I got both sides perfectly flat and perfectly level. So now I've decided that I'm gonna do the middle shelf 10 inches wide, and that's gonna make it match perfectly that triangle coming up. Now the big mistake I made on the big one, on the other one, the bottom one, is I just welded it all around and didn't let it cool first. I've started here and I welded the center and let that cool and scooted over one, and I can hear it actually cooling and crackling as I get done welding. So I can hear it taking the stress out of it so this thing doesn't bow after I get it all the way put in. So this was such a better way of doing it. Just do a little bit and let it cool. All right, now I'm starting on the very top shelf, and I feel like this project is going pretty quickly. And here it is, all welded up. Now we're starting to build the wooden shelf that's going to be screwed to the top shelf of the planter. You guys have never seen me do woodwork on the show. That's really what I started as. My dad was a house painter and construction worker, so I've been doing that since I was a little kid. You know, when I first dropped out of high school, I started doing construction and drywall and house painting, and so I've been doing that my whole life. And I actually just started working on metal recently, but I've done a lot more construction type things my whole life. And yes, I did drop out of high school, and yes, I am a physician, so kind of a rare thing. I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade because I had straight F's in high school, and I was ready to go make some money. Instead of being in school all the time, I was flunking out anyway. So a few years of that, I decided to go back to school, but wasn't sure I was smart enough. And so I took some college courses, made all A's. Took some pre-med courses, made all A's. Come to find out I have 137 IQ. I could have been in Mensa in high school. Oh well, I guess it's how you apply yourself, right? On my skill saw, I changed the blade to this finishing blade, and it cuts so much smoother than those really coarse blades that are in most circular saws. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to route the edges of this just to give it a little more finished look. This is why I don't like working with wood. Yeah, it's like that. Pretty nice. I use that router about once every few years, but man, when I need it, it comes in handy. I hardly ever use it, but it's a great thing to have when you're doing a little shelf like this. Just makes it look so much more finished to have a little routed edge on it. All right, I'm starting to stain the top shelf, and I picked a very, very dark black ebony stain for this. I think that's gonna look really good. When I was little and I started painting houses with my dad, of course I started when I was, 12 or 13. You always get the crappiest jobs, I would always be the one crawling down inside the cabinet, staining the very back of the cabinet door, or, the crappiest of crappy jobs. And we had fun, and I tell you what, it taught me a lot of work ethic. And I'm doing my best to instill that in my son, even though he kind of, has everything he could ever want. We are ready to start putting some finish on this thing already. Alright guys, here we are putting the final touches on the shelf. This will be the second coat of polyurethane I've put on it. I put one last night and let it dry overnight. And now I did a little light sanding to it, and this will be the second coat that I put on there. Now with this polyurethane, you don't ever want to shake it. You just want to calmly stir it, because if you shake it, you'll introduce air bubbles, and it's going to make it not come out very shiny or very clear. You'll have those little air bubbles come out in your finish. Just want to real calmly stir it, just like so. And my foam pad doesn't go all the way down in there, so I'm kind of having to improvise. I almost went with one of those pour-on epoxies that's very, very thick. I was watching Jimbo's Garage put one of those on one of the projects that he was doing, and it looked like it turned out really good. But I don't have any experience with that, so I didn't go with it. I'll probably put one coat underneath just as a protective coat. And if you get down into the light, you can see any spots that you missed in the reflection of light. That's the only way to see how you're doing on this one. Alright, the very last step in the Mother's Day planter build is I'm going to take these fender washers and I'll screw this up to the grating up underneath like so in order to hold the wood onto this top shelf. Well, here it is, all installed at Mom's house. I couldn't wait till Mother's Day. I'm terrible at holding on to gifts. I had to give it to her a little bit early, but here it is, all finished up. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this fun little planner build. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our great group of guys we have on this channel. And give me a thumbs up, because you know it means a lot to me. We'll see you in the next video.